Welcome to Power Up Your Practice, the go-to podcast for law firm owners and managing attorneys working on the business, not in it. I'm Ruby Powers, your guide into the heart of law practice management, bringing you insights from leading legal minds, trailblazing attorneys, and expert guests who provide you with an actionable perspective on running your firm more effectively and efficiently. Prepare to open your mind, be inspired, and power up your practice to the next level. So I'm so excited to have you, John. I'm the host, Ruby Powers, and we're a companion through the ever-evolving landscape of legal law practice management expertise. In each episode, we're going to be hearing about our guests' superpowers and their perspectives on reaching success. And this is just information, and I think what's important, it's like we're having a conversation. You have a good cup of tea or coffee, and we're talking about how not to reinvent the wheel, how to work on our business, not in our business, and how to just share this advice. And just I love learning from books, from podcasts, and from other colleagues who are finding ways to rock it and be successful. So today I have John Khosravi, and I think a lot of people already know you. And so you are another like thought leader in this space, and you have two podcasts, and I don't know all of the other things you have. I mean, we have regular conversations, but very impressive. Why don't you introduce yourself and let us know a little bit more about you?
Thank you, Ruby. So thanks so much for having me on. It's always good talking with you, and it's good to talk in a public setting because we share so much information. It really should be something to help other people out as well. I'm an immigration lawyer, been doing it for 10 plus years, and was full solo, just running a lifestyle kind of firm for 10 years. And then at a certain point, just I realized I want to scale. There's a lot of different factors that led to that, several factors. But I started hiring, and that's when complications started because I was used to doing a thing where I'll do a case, save all the money, but then you have overhead, and then you have hiring, and you have management systems. The volume goes up, the calls are coming in, and that's where a lot of the craziness is happening right now. And as you said in your intro, try not to reinvent the wheel, which I keep catching myself doing. Like, why don't I just call an expert or use this technology that's there? Spend time maybe researching and thinking about it, about things that are already there that other people are using, and talking with colleagues. And thankfully, they've been very helpful. Again, such as yourself. But we're figuring out what to do next because our engine is we have a Ferrari engine and it's in the garage. We got to get this thing rolling.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the power of scaling up and creating systems and processes that to handle it. Um, I've when I wrote my first book, I didn't use the word grow because I didn't want to make it feel like it was that everyone had to grow, that didn't have to be the goal. I've sort of had this like internal struggle about that. But then I was just recently reading a book about like how to buy back time, and in it the author says something like, if you're not growing, you're dying. And
Yeah.
like I don't know, I don't know. I mean, there's probably some like scientific thing about that, but anyway, I mean, I
Agree
think
with that. I look back, it was like a lot of wasted years now. I regret because you're either moving forward or you're not. There's no standing still in this game, in this world. So even I didn't want to grow because of the responsibilities of management and stuff, but there's no choice. If you start something, you got to take to the end. Unless I'm going to be an employee at a company, which is fine too if you're into that. But I wanted to have my own business and do things my own way.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, and I think the other thing, before we dive into like how to make it happen, it's like growth doesn't necessarily mean, crazy ton of people in your team. It could mean more profitability and having more time, and just having your systems in place that like you have a lot more control over what your day is like.
Yeah.
And I think that's goes back to like how do you define success, and that's different for everyone. But
I mean, that's a subject that it's very passionate for me, so I'll jump in and interrupt. But
okay, go ahead.
yeah, developing that lifestyle is really key, so I could do whatever I want every day. But then, sometimes you have to have like business systems to get things done. So like recently, I started where I have daily meetings with my two of my key employees on that we every day talk to each other on a because everyone's remote in our firm, and that
Mhm.
creates faster iteration. So if we say something on Monday, we're going to review on Tuesday, we'll review it again or finalize it. But that kind of takes away from the lifestyle of being able to like just make it up as I go along, which is kind of fun, frankly. But there's different needs for growth, and so it overshadows the old school lifestyle firm that I had. Was just like wake up and do a couple of videos and get a case here or there, and you make a good living as a lawyer.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like, when you talk about scaling, we've got a few important topics like having the systems to properly grow, and that's like building the infrastructure that everyone can follow, almost like a computer programming
Yeah.
language that we all know what we're supposed to do, and even if we don't have asynchronistically, we can communicate. The other one is building that legal team, the rock stars that you need to have on hand, and who go the extra mile, whatever it is, the culture that you're trying to grow to have. And then scaling, and once you have those systems in place, being able to constantly reevaluate your systems and your marketing and everything, so that and job descriptions as well, so that you can continue to grow. So I
All the
mean,
nightmares I have for I'm like, I don't have enough job descriptions every day. I'm like, why don't I have a job description here? Why don't I? These are like, it's very frustrating because I'm setting these up in more detail, and I'm like, I wish I had these answers ready, like to give to you. But I guess it's kind of important to develop yourself too, so you could really visualize what those roles are.
well, I think one of the first things to do is just to have those job descriptions, like at least you offered him a job at some point. You probably had something written up, and then you can also have people like do an audit of what they do, and just be
Yeah.
like, write down everything you do, and then sort of cobble together a job description, and then start putting more structure to that. And I see often when we're really growing, it's like we're having to sort of dissect like two jobs into three. Like, I was actually having this conversation yesterday, and it's like, how do we separate these jobs and we make sure nothing falls through the cracks? But anyway, so those are all like so important. So before we go more into that, like, what would you consider your superpower? I'm asking all my guests, like, what do you think that you're really good at, and why?
Well, it's kind of twofold. One is just basic law operations. I do immigration law, and so I enjoy like studying the law and then thinking about it, and then kind of taking complexity and making it simpler for clients to understand. And even business to business, I have a separate company that teaches people who want to be immigration lawyers how to practice the law. So, like, organizing data in that way, taking it from hard to understand easier, is something I enjoy myself. And then secondly, what just kind of turned out that way is doing this social media stuff and videos. If I'm consistent at I could do very well at it. I find myself getting bored doing the same thing over and over again. And at the same time, I don't want to dance and stuff in the video. So I've been spending the last couple of months thinking about how I could reinvent myself, my image online, to talk about new stuff. And a lot of it might not have to do with immigration stuff we talk about right now about like business and stuff. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I could talk about this stuff every once in a while, scatter some like stuff that's relates to the business I have for getting clients. But I think it'll show a different perspective of me. But if I just hustle the videos that I'm doing consistently, it brings a flow of cases, which is good. It's just um, having the energy and not being tired or not being annoyed of saying the same thing video over and over again. Because a lot of it is repetition about a certain case, but you sometimes have to repeat yourself online because you never know which one of the millions of people could possibly are watching. It's usually that's not the same people and over and over again. So you want to repeat the same message again and again because you're dealing with a different audience.
Yeah. So it sounds like your superpowers are really important to what you do, because being able to distill a complex concept into more simplicity is a skill, a superpower. Every it's very
Yeah.
valuable. Like, even as a law professor, or anything, or trying to teach a legal assistant how to do something, or trying to explain to your client what complex areas of law. That's like really important. And then you're being no not shy to the camera, and being out there, and marketing yourself. That's also really critical.
Thank
So
you. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, with regard to the first one, which is taking complex ideas and smaller, it's also
Mhm.
been me telling the clients this, but now I'm like making the switch of like working with my team itself to teach them more and how do we do that the best so they remember stuff. So that becomes it's a different audience. I'm switching it to more internal,
Mhm.
and so that's a kind of a switch too. And then along with that, creating standard operating procedures because I could talk about this stuff and go through it in
Yeah.
detail but like I haven't had it all written down, and that's kind of tedious. But that's where team members come in, where I'm like, we record most of our meetings now, and I say go back and review the recording, do notes on it, and then send it for my review. And if I see one of the notes I made in the video is not there, then I'm get angry. So that kind of makes them make sure they cover it. They're gonna do a great job. They don't have to worry about me angry, but I just put that in there just to be a mean boss or something like that.
So you were talking about how you record the meetings and then you have your staff like type up the notes or like put your systems in place by your operations in place from your meetings. How long have you been doing that, and how how has that been working? Has that been a good way to sort of institutionalize your systems and operations?
Well, it's relatively new. I mean, really this month, but it has been because it just puts like urgency on stuff to show it's important and to reiterate like what we're saying is so important. We're listening again in detail, and it puts the focus on the detail. So I'm making sure that things I'm saying aren't being left aside. I wasn't as strict about it before when I'll tell people to do stuff, and so a lot of the stuff fall through cracks. Now, the expectation is I'll try to talk slower because I have a habit of just running and talking really fast, and just make sure we get it all because as we're talking, all these ideas pop up that like you weren't expecting, and they get lost in the mix. But if something pops up there, I want them to keep track of it, and just to hear, especially as we hire new people, having them hear the message that we have, both on the legal side or operation side, learning how that. But more and more of it is the vision for the company, which I have to keep repeating ad nauseum, like constantly every time we talk, because it gets forgotten or unheard. But keep repeating mantras essentially of what we're here to do, why we're here. So the day the job is not a job. It's something much bigger that has a bigger effect on the world. And they see that from my perspective. I see it much better because they don't see everything, but they know that what they're doing is literally changing the world. That's very powerful. And that's why rewatching the video where I talk about this message over and over again has an important effect on them.
So, I mean, that's like really important. We've been, basically when the pandemic happened, or right before that or something, I don't know, we started recording all different things that we do here. And, from the mail to like how to make an invoice or, I mean, a whole bunch of stuff. And that's actually been really invaluable for onboarding new team members, but also cross training. And I mean, now we have all these different programs out there that can like make summaries, or we can record like people
Yeah.
record in like Loom and Zoom and what have you, and they can do like a summary or transcribe. So it's almost like overwhelming all the programs we have. But so you that's been I mean, and then you can sort of have all these different sets of trainings for
Yeah.
different scenarios. Is that like what you're doing now?
That's where developing. It's interesting you mentioned the new technology because we have a Slack channel where we communicate, and I'll keep sending videos and clips of things that I think are interesting in there, which is might be
Mhm.
annoying for some people. I know, like sometimes my family members send me a lot, and I'm like, stop sending me this stuff. I'm not going to watch everything. I don't have time, but I send it to them anyways. And then just yesterday, one of my key employees, but top people of the company, said, if you don't feel like watching this, here's like a transcript or like not a transcript, but like a breakdown. So she had put the video. It's an AI system and it broke down. It was an interview of Lex Freeman with Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, and it was a clip
Uh-huh.
of importance of truth speaking in the company and that being able to talk truth if something's wrong, so you're not afraid of mentioning it to solve problems. But it was like
Mhm.
a 3 4 minute thing, and it was just like 4 or 5 paragraphs that the AI took down. I still think the audio is better because one is coming from Jeff Bezos' mouth, which has its own power, and I think it's more thorough. But at the same time, it's much easier to just read something really quickly than watch a whole video at 1x speed. So these new software is probably better. I even forgot about that, but you're right. Like having the people that work with me, maybe getting a synopsis from AI of what I said might be better and faster too. That's a more efficient way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just depends on what's the audience and what information you're trying to convey. I was even talking to my team today about like how people learn differently, including our clients. Is it
Yeah,
audio, video, is it written? And I think it's good to present information at least in two different ways so that they can
sure.
like it can get soaked in, and you get the information across. But that's how we're going to replicate ourselves. Like we have to have the systems in place and the training, and otherwise like it's just exhausting to have to keep training, and it's a constant thing you have to teach, and being able to pass that information on to
Yeah,
your to your
it's
staff and everybody.
daunting. Like, I
Yeah.
do wake up sometimes because I love being an immigration lawyer and getting cases and talking to my clients, but this aspect of operations where scaling is, like, kind of I wake up in the morning and I'm not always excited about it, and it's kind of, like, depressing, like, "Oh, I got it seems like a big mountain to cover, but I keep telling myself, "This is just a big moat we're developing. Once it's done, it's once we pass it, it's gonna be much easier." And, the technology helps a lot, and that's what we're really going for. At the same time, we have to analyze each of these technologies, and we don't even know what we're looking for. So, for example, we're looking into lead management software, and there's one that's recommended by several people. So we're probably just going to get that. But then I was
Mhm.
like, what? Maybe I should talk with four of their competitors too and do demos with all of them. That's 4 different hours, 4 different extra people are going to try to sell me and email me and stuff. So I was like, at first I was like, oh, no way I'm going to do that. Then I'm like, you know what? I always tell people if they want to hire a lawyer, you should talk to two, three, four, five lawyers. Because if you talk to five lawyers, you can get 6 different responses. So you got to feel out which one's the best. And after talking the first one or two, you don't even know what you're looking for until that. Then you're like, oh, this is what I actually need after the second, meeting or demo. Then the third, fourth, fifth one, you can really ask good questions that are pointed. So, everything that will save time will at the same time increase time, just even like getting the technology and then it's teaching the team what it is, all that kind of stuff. But it seems like that's what we got to do to take things to the next level. So I think once we get in the gear of it, much more hardcore, it'll be easier to do. And it's spread out between different employees who would say, there's something that you do. You write the standard operating procedure. I'll read it. If it's good, we'll do a video on it. So you have the audio and video, and then and text. Then one problem is just storing it and organizing those videos and information in the right place. So we're testing out Notion right now as a way to keep things in one place in a more organized fashion. But organization of all these information is an issue as well. How do we keep it easy to find and accessible with proper titles so people can see what it is?
So you and I have talked about Notion before. Like, what if to listener if they've never heard of it? Like, why did you? What do you do with it? And like, what can it do? And why did
Well,
you
the
choose Notion?
first time I looked into it, because I can understand why people, a lot of my brother-in-law's in tech, literally writing code kind of for people, and they
Uh-huh.
really enjoy it. They have all these different technology, like that's all these new words that are new to us. But I checked it out and I couldn't get it. I'm like, oh, what is this for? And then months later, I tried it again. And it's a great thing about it. It's just a way of organizing things, and how to even explain it. But um, it's as if there's different Word documents and there's like, I don't even know how to explain it, frankly, but it's just a way of organizing. Like it's like a sheet, and then within it, you can have drop down menus you create or links to other pages. It's very well. It's adaptive to be very well organized. To
Mhm.
connect different pages, and also within a page to be able to do a bunch of different things. Add flexibility to adding Excel sheet in there. All of a sudden, adding a drop down, a link to another place. And I only use the most basic version of it. I don't know all this stuff. I probably use like 5% of it. But it's just handy to like, because a lot of times we're like, oh, that's a great idea. I should do that. And then like, where should I write that down? Where I have a drop down thing there. It says future ideas. It's just another checklist, like a check mark box, and I list all these ideas and I save it there and I could go. Whereas before I would email it to myself, it would get lost. I would write it on a piece of paper, it would get lost. I would like save it on a file on my desktop, but I have 1,000 of those. I would save it on a Word document on my desktop, but I couldn't find the document on the desktop anymore. It was just like opening up Word was hard. But this is good. I just have a folder that I have. I could go, every once in a while when I have free time to try to pick out some new old ideas that I had. It just makes it so much simpler to do, which is like I'm a really big fan of it. I'm forcing everybody knows me, like yourself too. I'm like, oh, we're making notes about something. I'm going to share a page with you on Notion. Let's put it there, and it'll be easy. It's just a one stop shop to have all that. But having said that, it just as a skill, there's so much more technology we're bringing in, different companies, different systems, that I do have a worry I'm overwhelming people. And every time I'm going to onboard people, there's going to be like 10 different software you got to get used to. They probably will know Slack, but our case management software, everyone uses a different one. Lead manager is a different one. Notion's a different one. We have like 4 or 5 other things. So I wish even if it was all in one, it wouldn't be a solution. It's just too much. But
Mhm.
at the same time, it does have an effect. Maybe I'm debating whether the time we're spending to get this technology does it actually save on people hours or not, but it probably does.
Well, it sounds like it's a little bit more like a project management tool plus in a way because you can
Yeah.
dump ideas and thoughts, but then you can sort of organize it. But then you can also task things to your team, and I think there's way the world worked before we were all paperless, and then there's the way we are now, where we
Yeah.
have like a lot of my assistants are remote and never come. Like, I even spent most of Saturday in my office this
Yeah.
weekend. It's sort of embarrassing, just organizing paper because I had a lot of weird random paper, but I have no assistants that come in my office, so I had to take care of it myself. But anyway, but you're right. Like, it has to be digital. It has to be a way
Yeah.
to and share. And I'm like you too. I get all these like cool ideas, but then it's like all over the place. And I know some people have told me about Evernote and some other things, but I don't know if that's like as as cool these days, but Notion sounds
Yeah,
like
10 years ago,
yeah,
that was the it thing, and I tried
yeah.
using it, but I got so many of these different things where I use it for, like, 3 months, and I'm like, "This is a game changer." After 3 months,
Uh-huh.
it just nothing happens, like
I
4 or
just have
5
to
of
do
these.
it about 3 or 4 months to see if
Yeah.
you still use it.
But Notion is that's been a year since I had it, and I'm still using it, and that's what makes it different because I didn't get burned out on it or just, like, forget about it. Like, I got
Oh,
this one thing, which a good colleague of ours, Nadine Heights, it's called Remarkable. It's one of these hand pads that
oh,
you can
yeah,
write notes,
uh-huh.
and I do
Yeah,
use it, but at the same time, half the time I don't use it, even though it's, like, there, I should be using it. My notes I had there were, again, they're getting lost. That's why Notion has an app, and I don't wanna plug them too much. I wish they were a sponsor, but it's just on the computer on the app. It's flexible, and I could type in there, and it works really smoothly. That's why I've enjoyed it. It's worth a shot even using a free trial just to see. You kind of have to watch a video of someone doing it or examples because it just gets dumped on you. One thing in this process of getting technology, I understood the importance of demos as opposed to the ability to just download a software for 2 weeks free trial because I don't know what I'm doing. So it's like if you don't know how to drive a car and they give you the best car in the world, it doesn't make a difference because I don't even know how to turn the thing on. And so I'd rather have someone go demo, which is kind of annoying because it's like when we go to buy clothes and someone comes up, "Can I help you?" And your immediate
yeah.
suggestion, "No, no, I'm good, I'm good." It's like, "No, wait, I do need help. I don't know how to dress myself, frankly, and I need someone with good grace to tell me what's going on." And so these demos are good. It's just you got to deal with people and all that stuff and sales aspect, which could be annoying at times.
Well, it's sort of like the necessary evil of like improving your firm is like we have to do these demos and if you also farm it out to someone else in your firm, like you might miss something in that, you could delegate some of that, but still ultimately, if you know how the big picture is, it's important for you to be a part of that conversation. I'm having that too when we're onboarding a new case management software right now. And I sort of was sort of hands off after we chose it, but then I realized I need to be more hands on as
Yeah.
we're about to implement it. I mean, so what are some of the other oh, go ahead. Were you
No, just
gonna
say
say
like, in society, a lot of people don't own businesses anymore, and they think the business owner is like a greedy person, but they don't understand. Like every day I'm doing stuff I absolutely do not want to do. I do not want to learn new technology at all. I'm not that old. I'm 40, but like I'm like over it. Like I learned Facebook and Instagram and stuff for me when I was younger. So, but force yourself, even podcasting, even this mic. I bought this mic like 8 years ago. It took me like until 6 months ago to figure out where to plug it in. It was super simple, but I wish I had like my kids are small. I wish they're old enough, like 10 or 12, I could do the technology stuff. But
yeah.
it's just so much that you got to learn. But at the same time, it keeps your fresh, your mind fresh, and keeps you young too. But by not giving up and just being like, "Ah, I don't want to do this too." So I had to constantly force myself with the technology. And so that's if someone's the takeaway from this one is like, it's really annoying, but it's something you have to do because the payoff is good. And that's why I keep telling myself to get myself through these demos and through like practicing the software, even though it's like, oh, so much time. I could do a video that's going to make me immediate money. People are going to get leads from that. Or I could talk about immigration law with my team or some clients that I enjoy doing. This not so much, but it is what it is. It's like getting a shot or something. You don't want to take medicine or shot, but you gotta.
Well, I mean, I think this is absolutely apropos to like scaling. Like first, when we start a firm, if we start from scratch or like on our own, we have to be a jack of all trades. And
Yeah.
then it's like over time, we can start delegating pieces of what we do if we're going to grow, which we're going to have to delegate if we want to grow. If we want to grow, we're going to have to let go. Right. And so then it's like, well, how do I keep shutting off different functions and hats or whatever just that you have and to someone else, and where do I ultimately go to? And I mean, where so I feel like we both have been sort of having this like these evaluations this last year or so or ongoing about like what do you decide to keep doing and what do you keep delegating and what do you start trying to take off of your job description.
Yeah, it's kind of depressing and disheartening because once I started this process, there was a book that I heard about and asked you, and you said you read it. It was helpful, and I was reading it. I got really depressed. So I'm like,
Oh
essentially, my
no.
business, my business was running okay. I'm making relatively to the population lawyers good money, but like I'm doing everything wrong to scale past like the gross amount I'm doing, and everything I'm doing has to be gone back to the drawing board and redone. And that's such a daunting thing to have to say, I just spent 10 years making something and all of it is going to
Mhm.
have to be trash and a new thing to come out of it to be able to handle the bigger scale that we're going to be doing. That kind of gets annoying. I got to not think about it like that. But just like it's growing pains, from a baby to a teenager to adult, your body sheds all the cells it had before new ones come. you break legs or you grow taller, your legs, your bones hurt and your muscles hurt. It is what it is. I always that's how it is what it is to get where you want to go, which I want to have a firm that's operational. If I'm out, I have team members I can rely on. It's frankly going to
Mhm.
make more money, be more sturdy. There's more services you could provide people, and just have a meaningful impact in the world that I could show my kids and say, listen, we did something here, you know? And so when you got to reiterate the goals to keep yourself pushing through the annoying nuances of the day to day of it. There's a guy named Alex Hormozy. He's very popular online for business development. I watched a clip of his, like a 1 minute clip. He was saying people want to do all this fancy stuff when they're scaling their business, but it really goes down to the boring stuff of what we're talking about. Okay, what
Yeah.
software is good here? What sales language is good here? How should we tweak this word from the beginning? It's really tedious. It's really obnoxious. And as immigration lawyers, we could do it when we're helping our clients, or just lawyers in general, we're helping our clients. But it was a saying. What was it exactly? I'm trying to remember. I read it the other day, but it was something like, if we get hired to do something really tedious, we'll do it because we have a duty to our clients and like we just get it done. But when it's for ourselves, we normally will not do it or we'll just keep putting it off. And that mindset is just kind of switched off. Like,
Mm.
have the same fiduciary duty and intensity to get things done for yourself too that you do for your clients. It's not because you're getting paid, but it's just because of the relationship that you have where people have expectations from you and don't want to let them down. I got to think about that myself. Got to think about that with my team that they're waiting for this new software I've been talking about for 2 months. And it's not there yet. And now I'm letting them down. And then financially and personally, I'm letting my family down because if this technology comes in, that means that much more time I can spend with my kids and my wife. So I just got to reiterate this stuff. I have it written down. So it's constantly the vision, the goals are there to kind
Yeah.
of the pain of that you're going through in the short term.
I think ultimately, just even preparing for my second book and even for this podcast, it's just fascinating between what are the tried and true systems that are just always going to be essential, and then when do we infuse innovation? And I
Yeah.
think it's like it's easy, it's we fun to be like some flashy little thing and like, oh, like just the get a quick weight loss, or like, oh, everything's going to be
Yeah.
okay with this AI app or whatever. But like ultimately, the business principles are still, a lot of them are still the same. And what we need to have good staff, we need to have a good culture, we need to have good systems in place, and we have a clear organization, a hierarchy or accountability. And then we need to have numbers and know how we're doing. And then we can't like just go get distracted with something flashy and fun. We have to keep coming back unless we've properly delegated. And even the people we've delegated to, they need to be held accountable and give us numbers and tell us what's going on. Because I mean, every time I go away too much because of some other shiny, pretty, funny, odd, fun object over there, then usually something fails and falls through the cracks, and I'm like, oh crap, and I have to come back.
We said the fundamentals don't change, and that's the key. And this year, we're right now we're introducing a bunch of KPIs and measurements because what doesn't get
Mhm.
measured get fixed, and that's going to be an annoying thing because we went so many years in our teams not having these standards that they're expected. And so now when I input, I know this can be annoying because when you're trained one way and then it gets more strict, it's always a turnoff if you're working for
Yeah.
something anything. But I'm like, it is what it is. And then next people come on board, they'll just start with this. And it really just comes to raising the standards, the expectation we have for ourselves and what we do, and holding myself to there. But we have to have a bright line on what the expectation is so we can measure off that. And if someone's failing at it, we could write a report or a citation. Even if they don't fix it, then that becomes the issue of whether they could continue working and with us at all. It's kind of harsh boss kind of stuff, which I intentionally never wanted to do in my life because it's like harsh, but it is what it is. If you want to run a properly function, there's so many different people here who have families that if one person is just decides not to step up their standards, it's just unfair to a bunch of other people who want to, feed their families and grow, be better. And so a lot of the focus taken away from tech, I guess, is hiring A+ players. I read a lot of podcasts that talk about founders and their books and stuff, and they really
Mhm.
get into like one A+ player is like 10 B+ players. So
Mm.
you just find that one person that's next level. Steve Jobs had a thing where he said like a good engineer compared to a great engineer it's not like the great engineer is 2x, 3x, 10x. A great engineer will be 100x the okay one. Is that dramatic the difference between a great person and a normal person in a position. So it's like what can we do to find these kind of people and then it becomes how do we keep them so happy that they don't want to leave? They really believe in the cause, and they know it's not some BS we're selling them. There's goals here, and then there's growth that's going to happen. So there's no point to leave. So my job then becomes just like a coach that wants to keep their players happy but working hard at the same time. And that's a new skill. And one thing I got to say is a lot of times when things seem like they're annoying or boring and stuff, once I get into it and I find some angle of it that I like, it can make it palatable and likable.
Mhm.
But I just got so many on my plate. So luckily, I have team members. I'm like, listen, could you handle this one? The other one handle this one. But at the same time, they have a lot of cases they got to handle. And then once they do something, I got to review the work too, anyways. And then my things pile it up. So it's just life. A lot of these are just life worries. But I see like there's people who made huge companies, and I have a different respect now for these corporations that have 5,000 people, 10,000 people. That's an amazingly difficult thing to do to create. I read Elon Musk's new biography by the famous author, biographer, and it's like for him to make these multi-billion-dollar companies. I mean, it takes pounds of flesh from him to be able to do this. But whatever you think about it, you don't just make a rocket company, a space company, and electric cars and all this kind of stuff without paying a toll. And I kind of don't want to pay all the toll. I like spending time with my family. I have small kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there's sometimes that feeling of like guilt. Like, should I be working my business or am I on my business? Should I work in my family? These are just standard things I'm betting everybody listening is dealing with. But you just want to fast forward stuff. We're not getting younger. We want to get to the goal line as fast as possible.
Yeah, you said a lot there. You recommended that book to me a couple weeks ago, so I'm getting into it, and I'm really inspired. Whatever you may think about him, but like just to be creating all of these different mega
Yeah.
companies that are impacting so many different aspects, but definitely inspiring. But you're right back to what you said about like a great engineer, or a great employee. I mean, the other issue you have when you have like not so great team members is that they can infect the rest of the
Yeah.
culture and sort of lower the standard. And if you're not, aware of that, then that's happening in the background, and they think that you're condoning it because you didn't call them
Yeah.
out or like replace or eject the not so good team member. So I
Yeah.
mean, you're right. Like we've got to find the right people, we got to keep the right people engaged, we have to have the operations, and then we have to be using the KPIs, and sometimes you're right, the change is not what they want to hear, but it's better for the firm. Like I always go to conferences and I come back, now I'm going to come from these podcast interviews, and I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, we need to do that, because that's such a
Yeah.
great idea. And sometimes my team's like, Ruby, like we have too much to do already, like we can't implement that right now. But I think that goes to what you were saying, like all these great ideas, all these things you want to do. And from Traction, it talks about how you just have to sort of just prioritize the ones that are
Yeah.
the best that you need to do, and say, this is what I'm going to do this quarter. And, this is what I'm going to do second quarter. And maybe it bleeds into this, the next quarter. But like, that's just what we have to do. And if we're wanting to do a lot of different things all at the same time, we just have to, we have to know our strengths and weaknesses, and know when to so
Yeah, that's
narrow
one
it.
thing you and I have is, like, there's all these exciting things we wanna do, but it's gotta be finished before you start the new one, and so it's like picking the priority and focusing on that, getting it to the finish line, then working on the next one. Ideally, you have 5, like, executives that are generals and like, "You do this one, you do this one, you do this one." That'd be real fun to be able to do that. They have different teams that could do it, but not at that scale yet to be able to do that. But having one thing I've done is I'm much more intense with the paralegal I work with directly on my cases, become more of an assistant and just constantly talking with them. So our brain is kind of like coming one. So they know what expectations they have and what I'm coming up with. So they're thinking about things at the same time, not thinking about, or I'm sleeping. That way, there's just more brain power going at a particular problem to try to fast forward to complete it.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's like, so as we're like closing up, like what are some of the books and podcasts or resources that you have had a significant impact on you, and that you just keep going back to, or just had a big, you've had a big aha moment, and then just
So,
would
yeah,
definitely recommend to someone else.
There there's a podcast called Founders Podcast by David
Oh,
Senra, and he goes and reads the books of different founders, sometimes multiple times, different versions of like, because there's always multiple books about a certain person. And he just picks, it's not he's going through a whole biography, but he's picking out parts that he thinks are important. And I've binged this one, hundreds of hours of this, and there begins to be repetitions in what founders deal with. And then whenever I see the repetition, like, oh, this, Henry Ford had the same problem, Steve Jobs, the same problem, this other person had the same problem. And it's like, okay, then am I having this problem? Like, oh yeah, it helps me identify the same problems they had, and then you see how they dealt with that issue. It gives you inspiration and ideas how to deal with it yourself, or at the very least, know that this is some hurdle everyone has to go through to go to the next level. That's something I really recommend. Along the Elon Musk biography, to read it audio, and watch the interview he just did with the New York Times, which is controversial. But watch the whole thing, not the first 20 minutes, which is the controversial part. Kind of goes down to his mentality of why he chooses business and what powers him, and because it helps the culture of the company to be doing something that you think is groundbreaking. So that caused me, for example, to rethink what we do. It's not just being a lawyer for somebody; it's the development in their lives and their love and their passions. And I'm not going to full conversation here because that'll take 10 minutes, but it's the real idea of like we're helping people achieve their love and their passion in life, and that's what's so critical to humanity that we're doing, and taking away from just law and law books and forms and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's and so, like, as you're going forward and you're scaling, like, what are your 2 big, next steps on continuing to scale?
Well, what the one I'm actively doing right now is creating a system so when we get phone calls, emails, and leads like that, we keep track of what's happening because I think we can convert. We get a lot of leads because of my videos that I do. But the system I had before is I just had send everyone to an email and have an auto response with the Calendly link for them to schedule time. But I'm like, you know what? If we kind of nurture these better, have follow ups better, instead of having like a 7% conversion rate to consultation, maybe have 14. So we don't necessarily need to even do more marketing. We just need to turn around a couple more leads who are on the fence and not sure, get them over. And that could be a big shift. We're a small company. So if we just get a case or two more, that's huge for us. And so one is getting lead management in a proper place. And then there's an operational side of hiring and training and keeping that system flowing where everyone is learning constantly and keep track of it. Some people need to have, measurements so they know how well they're doing. And if they're not doing well, we can highlight that and have that conversation. Whereas before, I kind of just let it go as easygoing kind of boss, which is nice, but everyone feels the effects of it. Because I'm being nice, that person will not get their bonus. Whereas if I was more strict, they're gonna get a bigger bonus and they're gonna like it more. Just and so sometimes it's like people. No one wants to be difficult or have harder things to do, but sometimes you really succeed by doing the hard things and difficult things, and conflict emerges too. And that's another thing I have to get more comfortable with. Uh, Sitting in conflict and being okay with it. I think that's a superpower
Mm.
need to develop more instead of running away from conflict or trying to avoid it. Go directly into it and learn how to resolve it without running away.
Yeah, so we covered a lot of territory, a lot
Yeah.
of like how best practices for scaling and writing out systems and having the right team members and giving them KPIs and having numbers, but then also as a owner or leader, not being distracted and making staying focused and going back and holding our team accountable and looking at those numbers and that you're mentioning. And a lot of good practices are mentioned that we've been talking about are in traction, about having the number and focusing on what those projects are for the quarter. A lot of good things. And I think it just keeps going back to this, like, some like old tried and true like wisdoms of the way the business should be. And
Yeah.
then and how do we use tech and other ways to innovate? How do we sort of think, so use some out of box thinking to maybe sometimes just completely change the way we were doing things.
But,
So
on that, as we're researching our technology, we have this issue of like, how do we keep the human component and the lawyer still involved so clients don't think we just bailed on him? We have that human connection touch. So part of what we're going to be thinking about now in our team is like have certain touch points pretty consistently. So although they're dealing with online forms or some sort of AI that's working with them, there's always a human being right where they need him. They can respond quickly and guide them quickly and just reaches out to them as a human being, say, hey, how are you? What are your worries in this process? And make sure we're there and bring that value as well, which is probably the most important value we bring. It's expected that we're going to do our job right, but that kind of personal value, personal touch is really important.
completely agree. John, what's the best way someone can find you and connect with you?
Sure, probably just email me at info@jqqlaw.com. J is in Jack, Q is in Queen, K is in King law.com. And if you're interested in becoming an immigration attorney practicing, we have a separate company, business to business, called the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, iltbox.com. We have courses and CLEs and training, all that kind of stuff, and podcasts and magazine and conferences and all these fun things.
Awesome. You've got a lot going on, John. It's always exciting to talk with you.
Same here.
Um, Thanks for coming on today, and just thanks everybody who's listening, and for joining us today. We want to be a part of your journey of like how to improve and succeed and whatever that definition of success is for you. And we have, if you want to, anyone can join the Power Up Your Practice Facebook group, and where we're keeping the conversation going in between episode to episode, where we're sharing ideas and questions and thoughts about running a law firm. And we've got upcoming episodes. We're got a lot of different great topics coming up. And feel free to let us know. Stay in touch with us with Power Strategy Group, with Power Up Your Practice. And, until next time, thank you and keep powering up. Thank you for tuning in to the Power Up Your Practice Law Practice Management Podcast. I'm your host, Ruby Powers, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. Join us next week for another episode where we'll continue to explore insightful strategies for success. Power Up Your Practice with us. See you next time.